Hello everyone, welcome to this special edition of CGTN, and this special series program is called Real-Time China. A couple of days ago we started our mammoth trip in the country's capital Beijing, and we're going to travel all the way through to the southern coastal Chinese city of Shenzhen, which is also the frontier city of China's reform and opening up almost 40 years ago. And today I'm in the central Chinese city of Luoyang, and this place is called Longmen Grottoes, and it has a history of thousands of years. 30% of the grottos here were carved in the Northern Wei dynasty around 500 AD, and 100% of the grottos were carved in the Tang dynasty about in the 7th or 8th century. So when the Buddhism started to flourish in China. Of course, today we're going to talk about Buddhism, and we're going to have a taste of Chinese Buddhist culture. And of course, today I'm joined by Yafei, who is an expert in this field and a guide. So if you have any question, don't forget to leave your comments on Facebook or Twitter or Weibo, anywhere, and we'll get back to your questions as soon as possible. So Yafei, would you like to say hi to our audience around the world?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm the guide in Longmen Grottoes. Today I will give you some explanation about Longmen Grottoes and allow you to experience the ancient Chinese culture in Longmen.
Okay, so Longmen Grottoes, they have a long history, and then can you first talk about that? Can you talk about the history? I just talk about some, like the grotto, 30% of the grottos were carved in the Northern Wei dynasty, right?
Yeah.
That is long history.
Yeah. I will give you a detailed explanation about the history of the Longmen Grottoes. Longmen Grottoes, it has been built in the Northern Wei dynasty at the year 493 AD. It has been built from the Northern Wei dynasty to Northern Song dynasty, lasting for 4 centuries to come to all the grottos here.
And also the Northern Song dynasty, right? Northern Song dynasty is around 1,000 years ago. And Tang dynasty. Tang dynasty, most of the grottos actually were carved in the Tang dynasty, like in the 7th or 8th century, right?
Yeah.
And then, so can you talk about the differences between the styles, when it comes to the styles between these two different periods of time?
Yeah. The sculptures built by the Northern Wei dynasty looks very slim, like me, has a slim face and a slender figure. In that time, the central Chinese people, they enjoy the slim figure. But in Tang dynasty, we know Tang dynasty is one of the very prosperous time in Chinese history. So in that time, people enjoy the plump figure. And you can find sculptures built in that time. They had a round face and a double chin, and you can find there are several wrinkles in his neck. So you can find our statues built by the Tang dynasty around the 6th century. They have a plump figure. It's quite different.
That's interesting. According to my understanding, all of the Buddha statues carved in the Northern Wei dynasty, they used to be slim, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that really was the the standards during that period of time. But when it comes to the Tang dynasty in the 7th or the 8th century, and they started to change the styles a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And the Buddha statues became a little bit plumpish somehow, right? And of course, and we have been talking about that, it's all about theories. And now, if we can give our viewers a closer look at the Buddha statues in a mountain, I think that would be a lot better. So you can see in the mountain there are tons of holes, and in each individual hole you can see some Buddha statues, right? A lot of them, most of them actually, somehow has been defaced. So what is this place? So can you talk about this place? I can see tons of statues and some figurines carved in the mountain, in the walls. So can you talk about some of them?
Yeah. In this part, you can find all the small statues and sculptures. They were built by the civilians and some officials and even the wealthy person in this part. So I will tell you about why these Asian people build their grottos, the sculptures in the mountain. It's a very hard job in that time, you know. One of the reasons like this. In that time, from the 4th century to 6th century, there are several natural disasters and wars in China. In that time, people need one way to find the spiritual comfort. So the Buddhism meets their needs. In that time, they built sculptures in the mountain. But this kind of form, it was originated from ancient India. And so we call the grotto the cave temple. cave temple. It was first built monks to do meditation inside. But in China, the civilians and even the wealthy person, officials, and royal families build their grottos to pray for healthy, wealthy, good luck, safe and sound, and so on.
So they used to pray for luck, right? And that's the part of the reasons. Usually, all of the carving and the money was donated by the local officials or something.
Local officials and the civilians, we call them donators. Donators, because they're donating their money to build the sculptures here, to get the blessing from the Buddha.
The donors in the 4th and the 6th century, right? I know Buddhism actually was introduced to China in the 1st century from India.
The Buddhism was introduced into China in 68 AD in Eastern Han Dynasty, because in that time the first Buddhism temple was officially founded in China, in Luoyang. We call that temple the White Horse Temple.
The first temple actually was in central Chinese city of Luoyang. It is around this area. Now the place where we are at right now is the Longmen Township, right? That is not far away from Luoyang, about half an hour's drive, right?
Yeah.
That is very interesting. So, on the walls, you can see tons of the figures. So I can see some of the figures over here. I know that we can see the history. We also call the Longmen Grottoes actually the living fossil, right, of Chinese history, because it was first carved in the Northern Wei dynasty in 500 AD, around that time, right?
Yeah.
So it actually depicts different parts of the different phases of history in China.
Yeah.
And over there, I can see 3 little figurines.
Yeah.
Those are not actually Buddha statues, no. What are they?
They are like the witches of the Buddha.
Witches?
Yeah, witches of the Buddha. For the Buddha and for the bodies of here.
So they served the Buddha back then.
The Buddha back then. And in this place you can find this kind of animal. They are lions. Lions.
Okay, I can see an animal over there, down there. If I give it a closer look, a little animal, something like, it's a lion, right?
Yeah, lion.
What's the symbol of lion? What does this mean actually in Buddhism back then?
In Buddhism, lion is a very divine animal. It's like a Chinese long, Chinese dragon. Instead, it's very much higher than any other animals in that time. So they always cover lion from the Buddha as a protecting animal to ward off the evils in that time. But China has no lion. The lion was introduced into China through the Silk Roads. In that time, in Eastern Han Dynasty, Luoyang is the starting point of the Silk Road.
That is interesting. So let's turn the camera around. And this is one of the caves, also one of the most well-known caves. And you can hear my echo, of course, somehow, in this cave. And this cave actually is very exquisitely carved. And on the ceiling, I can see a lotus flower. And what is it? I mean, the lotus flower has a very long history. What does it mean, actually, when it comes to lotus flower in the philosophy of Buddhism in China?
The lotus is a symbol of Buddhism in Buddhism. And in this place, in the grotto, they always choose it as one of the decoration here. Yeah, it's a symbol of pure in Buddhism.
So it is about purity in lotus, right?
Lotus. And it is, according to Buddhism scriptures, it says that when the Buddha Sakyamuni was born, he is able to walk around. The place where he stepped on, there appeared a lotus. So they regard lotus as a very divine flower in Buddhism.
So ever since then, ever since Sakyamuni was born, and lotus flower has become a very important symbol in Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
And I can talk about some history about this particular one. This carved lotus flower on the ceiling is very rare, because usually Sakyamuni or all kinds of Buddhists, they usually sit on the Buddha, but this one is like the other way around. Why?
It's like the decoration in the Chinese, in the ancient Chinese architecture. We call it in Chinese we call it zaojing, lotus zaojing. It's one of the decoration in the architecture. So when they build grottos, they want to build make the grotto look much more beautiful. So they choose lotus as decoration. Actually, we can find there's another decoration outside on the top of these parts.
On the top?
Yeah.
That is like the eave of this cave.
Yeah.
What is it?
You can find the shape of this thing. It looks like a what? It looks like it's a flame. It's a flame pattern here. Flame is another thing in Buddhism.
Yeah, I can see flame.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can see that throughout camera, you can see flame, the carving. What does it mean actually in flame? Flame is very much like purgatory in Western culture.
Yeah, but you know, in our world, flame is another thing which can give us brightness. So it's like the Buddhism philosophy can give us brightness in the world. So they always choose it as a decoration.
So flame in Buddhism, actually, they mean a bright future, something bright, something warm,
Yeah,
right?
something warm. And, to enlighten us.
Okay.
To enlighten us, like the Buddhism scriptures can enlighten us. So what is a Buddha? Buddha was an enlightened person.
Okay. A Buddha is like an enlightened person, right?
Yeah, enlightened
and the flame, it is not purgatory in the usually common sense in Western culture, but here it means the enlightenment, right?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that is lovely. And here, over here, if we turn the camera around, we can see two Chinese characters. What do they mean?
We pronounce Yi Que, the original name of this place. At first, this place wasn't called Longmen. We call this place Yi Que because of its location.
So now it's called Longmen Grottoes, right?
Longmen Grottoes,
But
yeah.
it used to be called Yi Que,
Yi Que, yeah. Yi refer to the river.
the river.
Yeah, this is the Yi River. It's a natural river. It's about 286 kilometers going to the Yellow River.
So Longmen Grottoes were carved along the Yi River, right?
Yeah.
And then we have this one Chinese capital over here. So how about Que? What does it mean?
Que means gate. You can find the Que mountain look like the gate far away, so we call this place Yi Que here.
So basically it means the river, the Yi River Gate somehow.
Yi
And
River
that's
Gate.
the original name of this place. And now it's called Longmen right now, right? Okay, for those who just tune in, this is CGTN. We are broadcasting live in different places of China. And this special series program is called The Real Time China. And now I'm in the Longmen Grottoes, which has been enlisted on the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000, right?
In 2000.
And it has a history, it has a very long history, and 30% of the grottos actually were carved in the Northern Wei dynasty, like 500 AD, and 60% of the carvings actually were made in the Tang dynasty, when Buddhism started to flourish in ancient China. Tang dynasty was around like in the 7th or 8th century, right? So that's just a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Okay, that is interesting. So let's move on to the next place. And so this place, actually, this particular cave was carved in the Northern Wei dynasty.
Yeah, in the Northern Wei dynasty, this place.
Okay. So now we're moving on to the next place that was carved in the Tang dynasty,
dynasty,
in the 8th century.
In the 6th century.
In the 6th century.
Yeah,
In the 6th century or the 7th century.
Near to the 7th century, because it has been finished in 675 according to the tablet.
According to the tablet, it was finished around that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we can see, let's turn around, let's turn the camera around. Let's turn the camera, if we turn the camera around, then we can see Buddha statues here all over the place. Different caves. There are altogether 2,345 caves. Altogether, right?
Yeah, altogether.
Altogether.
When you look at this part, this is Wise Mountain. Now we are in the Wise Mountain. You can find most of the grottos are carved in the Wise Mountain. Do you know
This is the West Mountain.
Yeah.
And we have two mountains here, right? They check the Yi River over here.
Yeah.
So the West Mountain, it has the most carvings here.
Carvings here.
Okay, the West Mountains, and then how about the East Mountain actually? Well, I don't see many of them over there.
In the East Mountain, you can only find 323 grottos. But in the West Mountain, you will find 2,022 grottos.
So 2022 grottos here, caves. So how about the Buddha statues? I know, I did some research myself. There are altogether more than 100,000 Buddha statues, right?
Yeah, more than 100,000 Buddhist statues are carved between the two mountains.
Okay, in these two mountains, there were altogether more than 100,000 Buddha statues, and some of them are quite small, tiny ones. You can see that carved on the in the mountain actually, and some of them, the tiniest one could be only 1 inch.
1 inch. Yeah, in the Luoyang cave.
How about the biggest one?
Biggest one is about 17.14 meters. It's a highlight in Longmen.
So that is around 70.14 meters. So that is around like 27 feet. That is really tall.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we go now?
Now we are gonna visit the highlight of Longmen Grottoes. In that place, you can find the biggest Buddha here.
So I can find the biggest Buddha here, right? We are on our way to the biggest Buddha. And of course, here you can see a lot of caves over here. One is very big, but it's very dark inside. And some of the Buddha statues actually have been defaced because of the natural disasters, as you said just now, right?
Yeah.
Around the 4th or the 6th century,
Yeah.
right? And some of the Buddha statues actually were kind of destroyed in the 1920s.
Yeah.
So how about this place? I can see, like, let's stop here a little bit before we move on to the biggest Buddha you said just now. So now you can have a whole picture of this place. It's marvelous. You can see caves everywhere in the mountain. A lot of them, different figures, and they are very different in size. And I can also see some pagodas, some stupas, right? So can you talk about this particular place?
In this part, most of them are covered around the northern Wei dynasty.
So it is, we are still hanging on around the northern Wei dynasty, like 500 AD.
Yeah, 500 AD. And in Longmen Grottoes, you can find the Buddhism sculptures, the grottos, and the terrace, and even the pagodas. So it's like the stone carving museum. Stone carving museum.
So it's very much like a museum,
Yeah.
but an outdoor museum. And this place, I would like to call it a living fossil, because I can see like the history in different phases of ancient China, right? And let's turn the camera around so that our viewers would have a closer look at the caves and the statues. And here, this one is quite special. Usually, among all of the other caves, you can only see like a cave and there was a Buddha statue in it. But for this one, I can see a gate for itself.
Yeah.
What is it?
In that time, actually, just like the Lotus Cave, they built the grottos and they also sometimes decorate them. So in this place, they choose the roof, stone roof, to decorate them. And you can find there is a bird.
Yeah, there is a bird on top.
Yeah,
What is that? It's just an eagle, right?
No. It's a very divine bird in Buddhism. In Chinese, we call it the dapeng.
Dapeng.
Yeah.
Dapeng is like, what does it mean?
It's kind of divine bird.
Divine bird, some kind of really big birds, I think.
Really big birds. And in some Buddhism scriptures, it cites the dapeng is enemy of dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah, enemy of dragon.
I know, like dragon actually is the symbol of China's royal family.
Yeah.
Like especially in the Ming and Qing dynasty around 200 years ago, 100 years ago. If you are from the royal family, then you are the descendants of the Chinese dragon, right? And now,
in Buddhism, you can find the dapeng. It's a very divine bird. They also choose it as a decoration. You can find them in the Buddhism niche. In Buddhism niche.
that is interesting because I did some research myself. I know this kind of birds. Actually, this bird would feed on Chinese dragons.
Yeah, they're Chinese dragons. It's the enemy of the dragon.
Okay, but that is all legend, right? That is all legend because we don't know if there were any dragons anyways in the world. It's probably in the past. But we have no any evidence right now, scientific evidence. But anyways, we see a lot of them in Buddhism or in Western cultures everywhere, right? So now we're climbing the steps and we are going all the way to Vairocana, the biggest Buddha in Longmen Grottoes.
Yeah.
How big is that Buddha? The biggest one is 27 feet.
25 feet. But in ancient times, a very tough job for them to go upstairs because there are no steps here.
Okay.
But in this place, you can find the ancient steps. In that time, they carved the steps here in the mountain to go upstairs.
Okay, so if we give it let's give it a closer look. You can see the original steps over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The original steps over here, very tiny steps, and they climb all the way from the mountain, from the foot of the mountain to the top of it, right?
Yeah.
It is very hard, and then I think a lot of our viewers must be curious about this. Is it so hard for them to carve those Buddha statues? How do they make it? How do they make it? That was a lot of work.
Yeah, I think they built the grottos under the face of the Buddhism. They have the faith in their minds.
So it was only about faith. and they had faith in Buddhism, and then they made it with a lot of money.
Yeah, because they were built by the royal families, so they can afford it. Only the royal families can afford it.
Only the royal family here, right?
Yeah.
So now we have officially come to this place. Now, from here, we can see the biggest Buddha statue in Longmen Grottoes, and that one, the biggest one, is around 27 feet, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that his ear alone is 2 meters long.
Yeah, actually his accurate height is 1.9 meters about his ear.
So the Buddha's ear is around 1.9 meters, right? So almost 2 meters, much taller than me. Anyways, so this is quite a climb, a strenuous climb over here. So without doing anything, I'm breathless a little bit. So I'm wondering how much work they've thrown into this whole craft. So now we have officially come to this place. For those who just tune in, this is CGTN. We are broadcasting live in central Chinese city of Luoyang, and this is Longmen Grottoes. This has been listed on the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000. And it has a very long history. 30% of the grottos were carved in the Northern Wei Dynasty, 500 AD, and
60% were built in towns around the 6th century.
Around the 6th century, right?
Yeah.
So marvelous. And just now, we visited some of the grottos carved in the Northern Wei Dynasty around 500 AD, and now we have come to this place, so we're going to see something quite different, right?
Yeah.
Just now you said, what's the difference between the Buddha statues between these two periods of time again?
We can judge the different Buddhist styles by the figures of the sculpture.
By the figures of the sculptures, and usually the figures in the Buddha statues in the Northern Wei Dynasty would be
Slim, very slim.
very slim.
Yeah.
About the Tang Dynasty again?
But in Tang Dynasty, they enjoy the plump figure, so it looks much fatter than the Northern Wei Dynasty style. It's quite different.
Okay, a little bit plummish, right? So now, our viewers, I think it's time for you to see something marvelous. Okay, so let's take a look. So can you talk about that Buddha statue? It is so grandeur, and the face is demure, and the carving is still, I can still see the carving right now, very exquisitely made. So can you talk about this style?
The style of this sculpture is a typical Tang Dynasty style. You can find this Buddha, the very kind of Buddha. It has a round face and a double chin, and we can find there are several wrinkles in its neck. And all of this shows the Buddha has a plump figure.
A plump figure.
Yeah.
It's a I can definitely tell that this face is very plummish, right? And I can also see some other Buddha statues flanking this central one, right? The biggest one.
Yeah.
Can you talk about them and the styles and everything? Because most of our viewers are very curious about those Buddhas around. It's like, who are they? Why did people in ancient China carve figures like these?
There are two disciples, two bodhisattvas. They are standing around the Buddha. On the right hand, this one is the eldest disciple, is Kassapa. This sculpture, it looks very aged because even though it has been broken by the running water, we can find his skin around his chin drop a lot. He's a very aged person.
So an aged person, a senior citizen in the past, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's the pedestal. If you can see that through a camera, that's the pedestal of the Buddha Sakyamuni, not Sakyamuni, Vairocana, right? Vairocana, Buddha statue, very complicated anyways to explain. Vairocana and the Sakyamuni, almost like the head of Buddhism in the past. They are like the same, right? And you said like Vairocana is the reincarnation of another state of Sakyamuni. And on the pedestal, in the pedestal, I can see some other figures, but most of the figures have been destroyed or defaced somehow. What are they? What are they doing here?
They are the men of great strength. They support the seat of the Buddha.
So they would support the pedestal of Buddha, right?
Yeah.
Because they believe in Buddhism.
Yeah, they believe in Buddhism. Yeah.
Some of them look very strange, actually. We can't see it right now. And then, if we turn the camera around, Okay, there are more of them over here. I can see, let's determine them on to our right. We can see those two. So who are they?
One of them, this one, is one of the having king in Buddhism. There are 4 having kings in Buddhism taking charge of the favorable weather. This one is the north one. North one is in charge of the winds. But we can find there's a very ugly guy on the foot of the having king. He's a devil. He's a devil.
If we give it a closer look, you see this one, or we call it some kind of god, is trampling on a devil. Devil. Why?
This means the justice will always conquer the evil.
Okay, so this one is evil and the justice is Buddhism in the past. That's the philosophy in Buddhism, right? There are tons of them, devils and evil people or demigods somehow. And then you said it's like they are the gods of heaven somehow, like 4 of them all together, right?
Yeah.
And they are in charge of like the 4 directions, north, west, east, south.
And yeah, but in China, I think they were localized because in China, they are in charge of the favorable weather. So in ancient times, they need a favorable weather to have a bumper harvest. So in that time, they can go to temple to pray for one of them. If they need rain, they can go to temple to pray for another one of them.
Okay. But that is definitely not from Buddhism, according to my understanding. Buddhism actually doesn't have those gods.
Yeah.
That is some kind of mixture between Chinese Taoism and Buddhism, right?
It's the Chinese style Buddhism. Therefore, having kings in original India Buddhism, but in China we gave them new meaning.
Okay, so we did in the past, the ancient Chinese put the Chinese elements into Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
When new here, definitely. I can see the what do you call it? QR code.
Yeah,
We have a QR code, and what is that? What is the QR code? You scan the QR. I know that is something that Longmen Grottoes have been doing to promote the culture here in this place. And then the QR code. If you scan the QR code, what do we get?
If you scan QR code, you can listen the explanation, both Chinese and English version here. And if you follow our WeChat account, you can book the ticket. You can invite the guys. You can book a place to park your car. It's very convenient for you if you follow our WeChat account.
So everything has become very digital, right? You have to make everything digital, all incorporated into this one WeChat account. And then if I scan the QR code now, what will happen? So we're going to have some poetry. I know you are trying to combine poetry and also the culture here. So most of people, a lot of poets, they write poetry on the WeChat account or something and they post it online and people could enjoy the poetry about the Longmen Grottoes, right? And the poetry actually is quite ancient, according to my understanding somehow. And now you are trying to make it live again.
Yeah, because, nowadays, the internet, the WeChat is very popular in China, and we can use the WeChat to make the culture here accessible to everybody, available to everybody.
Okay, that is interesting. So would you like to give it a try?
Yeah.
So let's give it a go. Let's see what happens if we scan the QR code. So I'm going to have a poem. Is it working right now?
Yeah. It's one poetry by a very famous poet.
So we have
in
China. The internet is a little bit slow here, but finally we have got it. So that is a poem.
Poem about him.
About Longmen Grottoes.
About Longmen Grottoes, about this Buddha.
Okay.
Yeah. His name is Yu Guangzhong. The poet, his name is Yu Guangzhong.
So the famous poet. And this poem actually was written in 2014.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to understand, of course, when it comes to poetry. It's very much like archaic Chinese, right?
Yeah. So it's another way to understand and experience the culture in Longmen. And because you can find the sculptures here, they're very marvelous. But you can't experience the Asian culture here to some person. So they want to learn something more. So and then they can scan the QR here to listen to the poetry here.
Okay, so you listen to the poetry and then you get a taste of Buddhism in ancient China, also in modern China, and a lot has been done to protect the cultural relics here. For those who just tuned in, this is CGTN, and we are broadcasting live in Longmen Grottoes. And here, you can find tons of Buddha statues carved in the mountain. There are altogether over 100,000 Buddha statues.
300 years ago, this sculpture has been built.
So how about this one? Let's turn around again. Okay, I can see there's a place. I can see some visitors, but now it's getting emptier so that we can have a better look at the the Buddha statue here. So this one, I said just now, this is the biggest one in Longmen Grottoes, and this one is around 27 feet, and its ear alone is around 2 meters long, around 1.9 meters.
Yeah.
But his hands are gone.
Yeah, his hands has been broken by the running water. And this part also lies in the part of the mountain. You can find holes in the wall. In northern Songdan, about more than 1,000 years ago, the Asian people wanted to protect them, so they built a roof. They poured some pillars into this hole and built a wood roof to cover them.
Okay, so I can see some holes in the wall. I can see some holes. Let's turn the camera around. Then in the wall, I can see some holes, right? So they used to build, in the Song Dynasty around 1,000 years ago, they built the roof for the Buddha statues here to protect them, right? But what happened after that? I don't see the roof anymore.
There's no straight answer about what happened about the roofs. Maybe they were broken naturally, maybe by some other reasons.
Because the roof was made of wood properly, and because of weathering.
And you know, when you worship Buddha, stand over bank, it will influence your eyesight.
Okay.
So it be tear down.
So it was torn down, or probably by us, or it was because of weathering, because the roof was mostly made of wood, right? And over the past years, because of history, and the roof was destroyed somehow, right?
To some reasons, they are made a bad effect on the statues here.
Oh, on the statues, because they did something for the good of these Buddha statues, but it backfired. It turned the other way around.
It has negative effects on the statues here.
On the negative effects on the statues by building roofs over these Buddha statues somehow. Why?
One of the reasons, like it will influence your eyesight, and second, when you build a roof, the running water can run from the roof, and the running water will destroy the sculptures to some extent.
So the rainwater actually probably would ruin these sculptures. So if we give it a closer look, actually, I can see the paintings, right? I can see the paintings on the sculptures somehow, but I don't see them quite clearly right now. But I can see some remaining colors, right, on the clothing. So in the past, now we don't see them right now. So in the past, they used to be colorful.
They used to be colorful. They were much more beautiful than nowadays because they were painted with the natural color, such as the red, black, green, and yellow.
Okay, so they used the different colors. And now, so how about the restoration work? I know you have been working here for quite a while. How about the restoration work? Why don't we recarve those Buddha statues? It's going to be a mammoth work, right?
Yeah, it's very hard to recover them as original, you know. And so it will also make some negative influence on the original sculptures. So we don't need to rebuild them, but we reinforce some statues in Longmen Grottoes.
So we just leave them the way they are right now, right? Because it's very hard. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of money, and it's also quite hard because they were carved Buddha statues, right?
Yeah.
And how about the colors? They used to be colorful. It would be a lot easier for us to, you know, paint them once again.
Now this color is quite different from the ancient. Just now I told you they were come from the natural stones. Yeah, some of them are expensive in the ancient time, but in nowadays, we haven't, you know, all the original color they use in each sculpture.
Okay, that is interesting to know. So it's getting more expensive probably, and it is very hard for us to, you know, make the way they were before. For those who just tuned in, this is CGTN. We're broadcasting live in Longmen Grottoes. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave your comments on Weibo or Facebook or Twitter, anywhere. Or you can also find us on the website. And I have got an expert here. He's a guide in Longmen Grottoes, and we'll get back to your questions as soon as possible. Don't forget to leave your comments. Also, don't forget to give us a heart and share a post with your friends if you like our post of podcast here. Okay, let's continue. Let's turn around. Let's turn around the camera so that our viewers would have a better look. So there were tons of them, tons of Buddha statues over here. But most of them here have been defaced, unfortunately. But over here on the top, I can see 4 of them lining up there on the wall. They are still intact, right? Very beautiful. It's a little bit reddish. And I know you have also done a lot of research in Buddhism, right? So can you talk about the background of the Buddha statue over here? And just now you talked about fire. I can see the fire. And how about something else?
Something else is the decoration of the Buddha sculpture here, and you can find his head circle, body circle, on the back of the Buddha. It's one of the way to decorate the Buddha, and you can find the Ananda, Kasyapa and Ananda, their circle is different from the Buddha.
So I can see 2 figures, right?
2 figures.
So beside, not Sakyamuni, but Vairocana. And then they used to be the disciples of Sakyamuni, of Vairocana here.
Yeah.
That is lovely. And also, how about these 2? And I think these 2, they look more exquisitely carved here, right? The necklaces and also the clothing and everything. Also the posture, the feet, the clothing and the decoration. Very, very beautiful. So who are they?
They are 2 bodhisattvas. They are like the assistant of the Buddha.
So they are the assistants of the Buddha, right?
Yeah. One of them on our right hands. He's in charge of the wisdom. Another one is in charge of the practice. That means you should combine them together.
Okay.
And then you can become the Buddha.
That is interesting. We have got some comments from our viewers. One Rundell, he said that is a lot of caves. I know. There were altogether, we said, like 2,345. That is easy to remember, actually, to be honest. Over 2,000 caves. A lot. Yeah, carved in the past around 500 AD and also in the Tang Dynasty around the 6th century, right, in the past. And then, one viewer is asking, how were they carved in the first place? It must be a lot of work. With modern technology, it's very hard. How about people in the past? It could only be harder.
Yeah, in that time, it's much harder than nowadays, you know. They have very simple tools, such as hammers and drills to carve them. And you can find all the statues here, they're above 10 meters.
10 meters, the statues. The statue, I know the biggest one is around 27 feet, right? Definitely above 10 meters. And even the smaller ones, they are still very tall, around 1 or 2 meters tall, right? So they only used some hammers, very simple and crude tools in the past just to carve these.
Built the wood scaffolds to go up.
Okay, so they built some scaffolding, right? So that they can go higher, so that and then they can make these carves. I know it would be a lot of work, right? Money-wise, I know you said some local officials or the royal family actually they donated money to make the marvelous carvings here, right? And then how many people actually were posed in this? I would like to call it a feat. how many people actually devoted their lives to the carvings? Do we have a number? Do we have an official number here?
We have no accurate number about it because there is no record about how many people they use to build this huge project. But in Longmen Grottoes, there is another very marvelous place built by the Northern Dynasty. That place, in that place, they use more than 100 craftsmen to work in that place for about 24 years.
24 years?
In that place, not here.
In that only one place, right? Particular place, only one cave?
Only one cave, because in that time, they only finished the Binyang cave. The north and south haven't finished until 150 years later in Tang Dynasty.
Okay, so in one cave, that was in the Northern Wei Dynasty, 500 AD, right?
Yeah.
So they spent 25 years making that only one cave.
Yeah.
Around 100 people actually were devoted to that. More than 100 people were devoted to that particular cave.
Yeah.
So let alone this one. This one is the biggest one, and we can see like the biggest one is around 27 feet, and then there are let me see how many of them.
Nine sculptures here.
Nine sculptures here.
9 huge sculptures here. Yeah.
Okay. That's gonna be a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work, I think.
So for those who just tune in, this is CGTN. We're broadcasting live, and what we're looking at here are some Buddha statues carved hundreds of years ago. More than 1,000 years ago, right? Yeah, in the Wei Dynasty and the Tang Dynasty. And there is a anecdote about this Buddha statue. I learned that online. I don't know if it is real or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we give it a closer look, the face of this Buddha, the face. Let's zoom in a little bit so that we can have a look at the plumaged face. So the first empress, or the first Empress was a female, Empress was a Tian, right? And then she actually devoted money to make this particular Buddha statue. And this one, it is said, was modeled after her face.
Yeah, in some people's eyes, they believe in this.
So they believed actually this one, the face was modeled after Wu Zetian.
Yeah, because in that time, the Empress Wu Zetian, she donated so much private money here. And that money is equal to today's more than $1 million US,
$1 million US to make this one.
It's only a tiny part of the huge iceberg.
Okay, only a tiny part of it, $1 million US.
Yeah.
$1 million US in today's money. Right, in the past, and then they only probably made part of the carvings here, the Longmen Grottoes.
Yeah.
And Wu Zetian made this one in particular, and that one looks, So I didn't realize that before, and I realized that actually this Buddha statue, the face, is very plumage, and it looks very, I said demure is the word to describe the face of this Buddha statue, and also quite serene and a little bit woman-like.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. Yes. But in China, since the Emperor Xiaowen made his capital in Luoyang.
So Emperor Xiaowen was around how long ago?
He made his capital here in 493. I mean, the first year when they built the Longmen Grottoes. And the Buddhist sculpture in China has taken shape of our own style, the Chinese style. In China, in the Buddhist eyes, the Buddha is very accessible for mercy. So they would like to give the Buddha a lady's face.
Okay, they would like to, in the past, around 500 AD, they would like to give the Buddhas like a lady's face.
Yeah.
The lady's face, for how? Because of mercy, the woman is usually more lenient when it comes to personality, right? So they would like to make it demure, like a woman's face. And that is part of the reason why this particular one is a little bit like woman, like the face is a plumage, right?
Yeah,
like the face of Wu Zetian.
Bodies they also look like it's a very beautiful and wealthy women. In Tang Dynasty.
In the Tang Dynasty in the past.
Dynasty, you can find they have plump figure and there are some accessories around their body. You can find
some accessory around the body.
Yeah, around their body. You can find the earrings and the necklace.
And earrings. I can definitely see some earrings over there, right? And also some necklaces all around the body, actually. And I can also see something like scarves.
Yeah, it's like a scarves. And inside time, the beauty standard is like you have the plum figure is beautiful, and so they put on the scarves to make them look much more beautiful when they walk around.
So that is why I would call it a living fossil, right? Because you can see the history, you can see like the ethics in the past. Like the aesthetics in the past was quite different from now. Now, most people like slim figures, very fit somehow. But in the past, in the Tang Dynasty, in the 7th century, right, ancient China, and they used to admire plumpish bodies over there, right? This is quite different.
Yeah, and in this place you can find this have king. This sculpture is very different because this sculpture it has a Polish.
Polish?
Yeah.
What is it?
His hairstyle. Yeah, it's different.
So his hairstyle is quite different. What is it? How is it different from any other hairstyle we see?
It's not the Chinese style.
It's not Chinese style. It's not Chinese style. What style that is?
In Tang Dynasty, it's a very open period, and in that time, some minority nationalities they came to China.
So China was very much like a hotspot. We have people from different ethnic backgrounds, right?
Culture melt pots in that time, and some of them they act as the officials in that time, the generals.
And they could also work as officials or like at top ranks, right? In the past, even though they were from like a different country, they were foreigners. Were they foreigners?
Yeah, some of them come from the place like today's Afghanistan, from that place or around that place.
Okay, so they were from the Middle East, like somewhere from Afghanistan. You said just now, and they could also work as the officials in the court.
Yeah, in the court in that time. So this sculpture is quite different. This general, it's like the general in Tang Dynasty. Yeah.
That is interesting. Now I understand why it is like the living history. You can see really what's happened in the past, and they were there and they are still there now. For those who just tuned in, this is CGTN. We're broadcasting live in Longmen Grottoes, and this place has been listed on the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000. And of course, you can follow us on CGTN app. And don't forget to follow Longmen Grottoes. You have your WeChat account, right? And then you can get more information on that, definitely. And don't forget to leave your comments on Facebook, Twitter, and Weibo, and we'll get back to your questions as soon as possible, of course. And this series of program is called The Real-Time China. We started the mammoth trip in China's capital, Beijing, and we travel all the way through the coastal city of Shenzhen, which is the frontier of China's reform and opening up 40 years ago. And of course, my colleagues have been broadcasting live in different parts of China. Don't forget, you can also go to our website and the CGTN app. You can find us there, the live streams. You can watch the replay as well. And don't forget to share our podcast with our friends. And definitely, we're going to see you next time. See you.
See you.
See you next time.